Hello and welcome to Runkle of the Daily. My name is Ian Runkle. I'm a Canadian criminal defense and firearms lawyer. Recently, the transcripts for the Johnny Depp trial have become available, and that lets us look under the hood and see some of the things that we couldn't see during the trial. If you were watching online during the sidebars, they silenced the audio. You couldn't hear what was going on. But even if you were there in person in the courtroom, they blasted that courtroom with white noise so you couldn't hear a thing. Now, what that means is that watching this trial, we got to see all of the witnesses and very little of the actual lawyering work. We couldn't really tell what arguments the lawyers were making, how they were doing, that sort of thing. And a lot of that is really fascinating if you're like me. And I mean, I'm a lawyer, so I'm a bit of a nerd for the lawyering work. So one of the moments I wanted to share with you guys involves alpacas and alpaca drama. So, as a bit of background, Camille Vasquez and Ben Chu, outside the courthouse, they encountered alpacas, and those were brought by a local alpaca business. I'll actually link them in the description below so you can check them out. But they have a business where they bring alpacas to like kids' parties and that kind of thing, and they brought them out to the Johnny Depp trial in support of Johnny Depp. Ben Chu and Camille Vasquez got pictures with the llamas. And then the next day, there was some drama about that. So let's have a look, and then I'll offer some additional context and commentary. All right, so this is the transcript. And it begins with the court asking, do we have any preliminary matters? This is the beginning of the day, day 20th, May 19, 2022. So the 20th day of this trial. And Ms. Bredehoff says, yes, Your Honor. Court says, sure, and they begin the sidebar. So that's all you would have heard if you were in the courtroom. And I was. Mr. Nadelhaft says, Your Honor, I'm not sure if you saw my email. Court says, I did. Sammy emailed it to me. And now Mr. Rottenborn's going to speak up, and he's really going to take the lead on this one. He's quite upset. He says, it's deeply troubling. It appears to be, I know it's up to you, a blatant violation of the court's order. The jury, I don't know where they park. I assume they park in the public garage. They walk past that and just have deep concerns about the integrity of this process when things like that are happening. And Judge A says, all right. Mr. Chu speaks up to say, Your Honor, if I may be heard, I can give a little context. I will apologize, but I can put it in context. And so when he's starting off with, I'm going to apologize, but let me give some context, he knows he screwed up. Simply put, he screwed up, and he's trying to wrangle that. He's trying to deal with that. He's trying to explain to the court. So Mr. Chu says, the night before last, Ms. Vasquez got a very serious death threat. I know there are other threats going back and forth, but it was very serious. It was after her cross-examination of Ms. Heard. Our email and computer systems were compromised and hacked. Some of Mr. Depp's data was stolen. So, when you're a lawyer, and I mean, it depends on what you practice, but like I do criminal defense. So I occasionally get death threats, and usually they're not a big deal. From the context, we can get that they've been getting a bunch of death threats, but this one is one that made them take pause. It made them stop. And that might be because if they're getting hacked at the same time, was that connected to this, or was that a separate incident? But this one apparently is one that made them take notice. It might have been more specific. It might have provided more details. So they were a little rattled, is basically what they're saying there. So the firm made us surrender our phones. So yesterday I surrendered my phone, gave it to my assistant. What happened was I went down a little earlier when we were cleaning out the breakout room. I went down alone and I didn't have my phone. I was waiting for my assistant to come and bring me the phone. We couldn't contact the gentleman who was driving us to and from. I was surrounded by 100 people, and it was a little, not scary, but it was a little overwhelming. So finally, the driver came, and Camille and the rest of the team came out, and we asked our technician to take a private picture of us with the alpaca. And the court says, which is still against my order. Also, the way he's telling this story doesn't appear to be exactly correct, and I'll explain that a little later too. Mr. Chu says, I apologize. I do apologize, but it's completely my fault. I was taking a picture for my boys, who I haven't seen in 5 weeks. I apologize. No excuse. It's not prejudice. There's no disrespect. In fact, I don't see how it's prejudicial. And Judge A is going to disagree with him here. She says, you can see if jurors are coming out there and you're doing pictures with alpacas. You can understand that. Mr. Chu says, I do understand that, Your Honor, and I do apologize. But I don't think that happened, and we were surrounded, and we contacted some people to escort us from now on. Court says, yeah, you probably shouldn't go out there until your car is ready. Mr. Chu says, we won't. And that's why I mentioned the phone. Because I literally did not have my phone because it was being fixed. It still hasn't been fixed. Our assistant has to come back again today at lunchtime and get it fixed. I assume that the fix here is either undoing some sort of hacking or else beefing up security measures for the phone. So I'm not sure which of those things it is, but that seems to be what they're looking at here. Court says, okay, you're getting escorted too, right? Are they escorted? And Mr. Rottenborn says, we have been some days, a little less, fewer people, but some days we have. The court says, okay. And Mr. Rottenborn continues, but obviously there's no excuse for it. It's horrible that Ms. Vasquez received a death threat. We've received them too. Judge A says, I know you have. Mr. Chu says, we get called. And Mr. Rottenborn interrupts to say, that doesn't address. And the court says, I understand. A lot of these sidebars have Judge A basically going, I get it. You guys can stop talking. Judge A is clearly the smartest person in the room most of the time, or all of the time. And so there's a lot of times when the lawyers are trying to explain something to her, and she's like, I got that. I understand. You don't need to really over-explain it with me. So Mr. Rottenborn says, it wasn't just Mr. Chu was posing for pictures. He was also taking a picture of Ms. Vasquez. And I get that it's tough, but we just have, and I'm not going to impute that notice to Mr. Chu and Ms. Vasquez, but Mr. Depp's online army of support is zealous, to say the least. And when things like this go viral, it only makes it harder for the jury to avoid. The court says, I understand. And he continues, it's just a blatant black and white violation of the court's order. The court says, okay. And then turns to Mr. Chu and says, so you're obviously on notice from now. And he says, yes, Your Honor. There'll be sanctions if it happens again. Yes, Your Honor. You need to figure it out, but I don't want you, if people are videotaping, you can't be standing there when people are videotaping. And he says, we won't. She says, you can't be engaging with them. It's going to be silence the whole way. And he says, understood. This is really a bit of a chewing out that Mr. Chu is getting. She's reading him the riot act. So she is not happy with Ben Chu over this. And that's fair. In cars, gone. I don't want to see any grandstanding whatsoever. He says, we're not leaving without having our driver there. It just can't happen again. Mr. Chu says, I understand. And so she really wants to really hammer this home, but at the same time, she does him a solid because she says, if this happens again, there will be sanctions, but she doesn't impose sanctions this time. So sometimes judges will do this. They'll tear a strip off you in order to not punish you, because the alternative is that they can just punish you, and that's less fun or less good. And then the court says, and this is unrelated to the alpacas. The court is actually bringing up a new issue. Additionally, it was brought to my attention this morning, so I just want to get this on the record also. There was an employee's kids out on the balcony in the back chambers area that when you're at the judge's lot, you can see this balcony on the 5th floor. So the judge's lot would be where the judges park and also where the teams were allowed to park to bring in the clients, because they don't want Johnny Depp and Amber Heard having to walk through crowds in order to get to this trial. So there were kids out there yesterday when people were coming in, and they were videotaping the arrivals of your clients. One of the kids posted it on TikTok. I found out this morning. That would have gotten so many views, except it's been removed from TikTok and nobody can go on that balcony again for the duration of this trial. But since it happened, I wanted to let you all be aware of it, and I have dealt with it. And Mr. Chu says, thank you, Your Honor. The court says, very sternly. I want to make you aware of that as well. So I can guess that Judge A had some words for the employee whose kids were out there videotaping. Now they have some other matters that really aren't connected to this, so we'll just move past that for now. Now, I mentioned this whole Alpaca incident, and I was actually there for this. And as I mentioned, Mr. Chu actually gets the facts wrong. I'm going to say gets the facts wrong because I don't think he was lying. I think he's misremembering. And the reason why I say I don't think he was lying is that when people lie, they do it to make themselves look better. He actually made himself look worse with what he said. So he got it wrong and actually hurt himself in the process. So let's have a look. Now, I've only got a partial recording here because I started recording midway through. I apologize. I am a little bit laughing at this because I was kind of just struck as to how weird this is. I actually comment in the video and say it's a circus. So let's have a look. All right. Now, Camille was initially a little hesitant about the alpacas. She's a little taken aback. But the thing he got wrong is he said that his car arrived and then he had his technician take the picture with the alpacas. In fact, his car's not here yet. They were waiting for their car to pull out. They actually came out and were expecting to see their car there, but it wasn't there. They got stuck out here. That's how this crowd forms around them, is that they're sitting there going, where's our car? And there's just nowhere, like they don't have the car there. So at that point, they're kind of like, what do we do? And then once that happens, the crowd gathers, they start filming. And in fact, there's a reporter who tells Camille Vasquez that she should get a picture with the alpacas. Now, you can see that on the guy's shirt, it's My Pet Alpaca is the company. And on the right there, that's James from court. I haven't heard from him for a while, so I hope he's doing all right. But yeah, these two alpacas were absolute sweethearts, and you can see that they're there getting pictures. The alpacas have pirate hats, of course.
That's cool.
But you can see there's no car there yet. Those alpacas, by the way, absolute sweethearts. They had no problem with the crowds. They were wonderful. They're just great animals. So yeah, we'll see the car arrive just momentarily. The other thing I just want to note here is that Ben Chu and Camille Vasquez really aren't grandstanding here for the crowd. They're having a little, like, they get a picture with the alpaca, but they're not like making a speech. They're not anything like that. And they're just kind of stuck out here waiting for their car. This crowd was going to be paying attention to them regardless, just because they're out here and because they're so well known. Everybody knows who they are. Everyone knows why they're here. Now, directly behind us in this shot is the courthouse entry. And I'll talk a little bit about jurors in a moment here. This is such a freaking story. Now I'll just note, it's not them that's honking. It's another vehicle that's out of frame. Somebody else is just losing their mind over all of this. They're the cars arrived, and so the first thing they're doing is they're hustling to get into it. There's people in the background wondering if that's Johnny Depp in the car. I don't think he was. Okay, so that's the footage I've got there. And I'm just going to note, I've looked at this. I've also looked at some footage that was recorded by other people that I mean, this I know I have the rights to because I recorded it. There's some other footage that's recorded by other people that I I don't want to use because I don't really have the rights to it. So they could, file claims and so forth. That's a headache I don't need. But I did review that other footage. And so I went and looked very carefully at everyone there. None of the people in this crowd were jurors. Nobody. The entryway is just off to the right. If I bring this up again, you can see those pillars at the right. That's the entryway to the courthouse, basically. So I now, I didn't see any jurors at this point, but you can tell my attention was focused a little elsewhere. I can tell you that there was often some sort of craziness out here. There were alpacas some days. There was Johnny Depp impersonators some days. There was stuff going on. And I can also tell you that I saw the jurors when they were leaving. Some of them did, in fact, park in the public parking lot. And to get there, they would leave and then basically turn left and walk past all of this. So I did see jurors there. There were plenty of times when I was coming on streams after the day of court, and I might have to angle myself because I didn't want to have a juror captured in the footage, even just as a face in the background. I didn't want that at all. I really was very careful to make sure that didn't happen. Similarly, I made sure that I was never streaming when a juror was around because I didn't want that to be a thing. I didn't want there to be any sort of claim of interference, even accidental. So I was very cautious about that. But you do know who the jurors are once you've been there for, a day at least or whatever. You've seen them in person. And I can tell you that the jurors, when they came out, they didn't interact with any of the craziness that was going on outside. They did not care for it. They didn't care about it. They just came out and then walked over to their cars and left. One juror was getting picked up by somebody. I didn't pay too much attention to who was picking them up because, of course, why would I? But the jurors really didn't want to see this. They didn't care about it. I don't think that the jurors were going to have any sort of fan moments about any of the lawyers. I think that the jurors were, quite frankly, tired of the lawyers by the end of this and just but I'd see them, they'd leave the courthouse, they'd just keep their head down and they'd just walk directly to their vehicles and leave. That's it. They didn't go around to see the Johnny Depp leaving thing or anything like that. They just got out and left. The same way you probably leave your job at the end of a hard day's work. You're just oh, all I want to do is just get home and have a beer or something. So I don't think that there was actually much concern. If a juror did come out when that was happening, sure, they might have seen that, oh, sure, something's going on again. But I don't think they would have cared. So I think Judge A had it right to like admonish them and say, hey, you can't be doing this. Don't make this into a thing, but also not punishing them. And to be honest, I'm really glad that they got to have that moment, that little bit there where they're getting to be kind of human in all of this. It's actually really, it was really nice to see Camille Vasquez there and the smile she's got as she's like, oh my God, these alpacas, and Ben Chu's smile. Because it was a rough time. There wasn't a whole lot of smiling, and that little bit of joy, I think, was a really nice moment in otherwise what must have been a real slog of a trial. So I really like that they got to have that moment. I hope his kids enjoyed that picture. I hope that it brought a smile to their face, and I hope they're all doing well. I'm glad that they're probably, hopefully, they're not getting death threats over this anymore. So hopefully that's passed. But yeah, as I said, I'm going to link the Alpaca company in the description below in case you happen to be in the Virginia area and want to have, alpacas come to an event. I have no connection to the Alpaca company. Like, they're not a sponsor or anything. I'm just linking them because that was a really cool thing. I really like the alpacas. So, anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you found this to be interesting or educational. I guess stay tuned for pictures of me with alpacas as well. Please like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to see more content. I want to thank my Patreon supporters at the $50 level, CCFR, CAME, Canada's National Firearms Association, and the Canadian Shooting Sports Association. At the $30 level, Sights and Arms Limited and Jane Babe and Luxor. And at the $20 level, Lindsay Metcalf, Larry Kalniak, Here's a Coin Legal Witcher, Cameron Johnson, Andrew Elsich, Vicky, and Dorky Dane. Thank you as well to my $10 supporters who will be in the crawl immediately following. Thank you for watching. Hope this has armed you with knowledge. See you next time.